We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chav Tes Amud Beis, towards the bottom of the Yamud, where it says Leime. First word on the line, Leime. The Gemara before brought a Machlokes Tanoim, Machlokes of Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, I think it was, regarding the age until when a father could make his son a Nazir. So Rabbi says that it's until the age of Mufla Samuch Le'ish. Or actually, one second, let me make sure I get this right over here. Rebbe says it's until Achayav Shtei Sidus, which means until the age that he's a Gadol, Bar Mitzvah, Shtei Sidus, you see the signs that he's a Gadol. And Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says until the age of 12, which is called Oynas Nedarim, because that's a Mufla Samach Le'ish. From that age forward, you're able to make a neder, and you have to check if he knows what he's saying, the neder takes effect. So the Gemara here brings now another Braisa, where there's an argument between Tanoim, the exact same argument. Zok the Gemara Leime, shall we say, Hani Tanoi, the Machlokes of the two Tanoim before, Ki Hani Tanoi is the same Machlokes as the two Tanoim here. The Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Maise berab Chanine, there was the story with Rab Chanine, Shehidiroi Aviv ben Nazir, that his father made him a Nazir. And then his father brought his son, Rab Chanine, to Behaviel of Nei Rabban Gamliel. He brought him to Rabban Gamliel to see if this Naziris took effect, if they did not take effect. Rabban Gamliel was examining to see if he has the signs of a Gadol yet or not, to know if the father's Naziris took effect. That's the way the Tanakama records the story over here. Rabbi Yossi says that Rabbi Gamliel was examining him, but Leida im higia lo'onis nedarim im lav. He was asking to find out whether he's already 12 years old, to know if he came to the age that he can make a neder himself, and then the father's nedarim don't take effect. So we see here clearly the same argument we had before, up until what age the father's nedarim or naziris takes effect for the son. Right over here there's a machlokes tanoim, the exact same thing. And the Braisa continues and says, Omar loi Rabbi al tetztair lebetkeni. So Rab Chanine says to Rabbi Gamliel, don't cause yourself pain to try to figure out if the Naziris of my father took effect for me. Because im kotten ani, if I am a kotten and I cannot take Naziris upon myself, so b'shval I'll be a Nazir because of my father that made me a Nazir. I accept to do what my father wanted. Im Gadol ani, and if I am a Gadol, so then b'shval I'll be a Nazir that I take upon myself to be a Nazir. So I'll do it myself. In other words, he's telling Ram Gamliel, either way, I'm going to follow what my father wants. I'll be a Nazir. So you don't have to examine if I am a Nazir or not. Amad Rabbi Gamliel got up v'noshka al roshai, and he kissed him on his head. And Amar Rabbi Gamliel said, Muftach ani b'zeh, I'm guaranteed with this individual shemayra halacha b'Yisrael, that he's going to teach halachas for Yidden. So Amru, they said, lehoyu yamu ma'atim, not many days passed, at shahayre hayra b'Yisrael, and he became a great person to teach Torah for Yidden. Don't forget, at this point he was either 12 or 13 years old. So it says not many days passed. So he was at a very young age. It sounds like from the Lashon of the Gemara, he began teaching Torah for all Yidden. Okay, this is just to contrast this to the Gemara that we learned yesterday. The Mishnah said that a child a son has a koyach to protest against his father making him into a Nazir. And according to the Shlokish, that says that the whole idea of a father making his son a Nazir is l'chan choy b'mitzvahs. But if it's something of Naziris, which could be an embarrassment for the son, it's very difficult for the son to accept, the son is allowed to protest and say, I can't accept this kind of chinuch, sort of. But over here you see that Rab Chanine, he accepted this chinuch from his father, and he said, this is what my father wants, I'm going to do it, whether through his Naziris or I'll accept it myself. And this was a tremendous praise for him. This was a tremendous maila, and he says, he's accepting this kind of chinuch, and he's going to be a Meirei Rabbi Yisrael. Okay, the Gemara focuses now on one detail that it said here in the Braise, that he told his father that he told Rabbi Gamliel rather, that you don't have to examine me. It doesn't make a difference if I'm a kotten, if I'm a gadol. Either way, I'll be a Nazir. So there's a few ways to understand this continuation of the Gemara here. The way we'll learn it is according to the Tosfos and the Rosh. The way the Gemara understands what he was saying to Rabbi Gamliel, whether I'm a kotten, whether I'm a gadol, what does kotten and gadol mean in this context? It means kotten and gadol regarding Nazirus, which is the age of Mufla Samach Le'ish. Kotten means that I'm young, that I can't take upon myself Nazirus, and my father could make me a Nazir. That's kotten in the context of Nedarim, always means that I can't accept Nazirus on myself. So then what does Gadol mean? Gadol means in this context that I'm a Gadol that I could accept Nazirus upon myself. So now the Gemara says that only fits with Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, maybe not going to say Rabbi Yehuda, and the Brisa didn't say Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yossi, we understand the Omar, he says, that the age that the father could make a son on Nazir is only until 12 years old. Regarding the Darim, that the son from 12 and older, he can make his own Darim. So only until then the father could make him a Nazir. So Haine de Ka'amar, this is the meaning of what he was telling Rabbi Gamliel, Im Katanani Aye B'Shvalaba. If I'm a Katan, which means below that age that I can't accept a Nazirus on myself, so I'll be a Nazir for my father. And the Bach here adds, and then he said that if I'll be a Gadol, and if Im Gadolani Aye B'Shvalatzmi. And if I'm already a Gadol, so Gadol in this context means Gadol Gabi Nazirus, meaning that I'm 12 years old and I could accept Nazirus myself. So then I'll be a Nazir for myself. I'll accept it upon myself. But according to Rebbe, that says that a father could continue making his son a Nazir even past the age of him being a Gadol regarding Nazirus. And it goes to the age of Shtei Sidus, when he has the signs of being a Gadol B'chlal. So if so, v'im Gadol ani eye b'shvil atzmi, when he says, if I am a Gadol, so I'll be a Nazir for myself, in this context, the word Gadol means from the age 12, before he's bar mitzvah, before he has the signs of being a full Gadol. So according to Rebbe, he's still in the reshus of the father. At this age, the father could still make him a Nazir. So why is he saying to Rabbi Gamliel that I'll be a Nazir for myself, I'll accept it upon myself? And so the reason why the Gemara understands the pshat of Katan and Gadol this way, even though it's not the usual understanding of Katan and Gadol, is because here he's telling Rabbi Gamliel, I can take it upon myself, don't worry. Even if my father's Nazirus did not take effect, I'll take it myself. In this context, from what point could he take it upon himself? From 12 years old. If that's what he was trying to say, so then it means 12. So therefore Gadol over here means from the age 12. So on that the Gemara asks that according to Rebbe, Gadol is the father's Nazirus still takes effect, so he doesn't have to take it upon himself. So why is he saying that I'll take it upon myself? Elo, so the Gemara answers, you're right, you'll have to say over here in the Lashon of this Braise, the Omar ehei b'shvil Abba, ehei b'shvil Atzmi. That it doesn't take to say in the Braise Gadol and Katan, the ages regarding the Nazirus, but he was saying I can be a Nazir because of my father that made me a Nazir, or I could be a Nazir for myself. But Itaka didn't mention the words Katan and Gadol in this context, because in this context Katan and Gadol means from the age 12. Rather, he was saying that if I'm already bar mitzvah and my father's Nazirus does not take effect, so then I'll accept upon myself to be a Nazir. Okay, this is like I said, the pshat of the Rosh and the Tosfos in the Gemara. Let's go weiter.
But the point was 13.
Again. That's machlokes. It's a machlokes b'metzias. What happened over here? How did the story play out?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, but the Gemara now has another shaila on Rebbe's opinion regarding this story. Now, fragt the Gemara, na I see shtei sidis mei kara. So let's look at what happened over here. There are three different options of what could have happened regarding his age, whether it's this father's Nazirus that took effect on him, or it's his own Nazirus that takes effect. Now, one option is, if he already brought the 2 years, this is a Gadol, from the beginning, meaning that his father's Nazirus really never took effect. So, come ben Nazirus delay. So then, it'll really be his own Nazirus. So his own Nazirus started right from the beginning. He told Rabbi Gamliel, I take upon myself my own Nazirus. So from the beginning, instead of his father's Nazirus, it's his Nazirus. Now, on the other hand, Ulu B'Saif, if he only became a Gadol, all the way at the end, by the conclusion of the Nazirus, so then, Kam ben Nazirus Davua. So then, the entire Nazirus, all 30 days of the Nazirus, right? A Stam Nazirus is 30 days, the entire Nazirus is all the Nazirus of his father. Okay, in both of these cases, what's going to happen at the conclusion of 30 days? He's going to have to bring the karbanis for his Nazirus, whether for his father's Nazirus or for his own Nazirus. Now the question is, V'i Aisi b'mitzi, but if he becomes a Nazir right in the middle, sorry, not a Nazir, if he becomes a Gadol, that is, if he becomes a Gadol right in the middle of his Nazirus, let's say on the 15th day of his Nazirus, he becomes a Gadol. So what happens now? What's going to happen now? So now the Gemara's question here, as it explains it in the Rosh and the Tosfos, is based on the halacha that even a father that could make his son a Nazir, that only means that he can make him a Nazir until he becomes a Gadol. The moment the son becomes a Gadol, the father's Naziris is stopped, doesn't continue anymore. So now, if he becomes a Nazir from the father's Naziris, because in the beginning he was a Katan and his father was able to make him a Nazir, but then 15 days in, he becomes a Gadol, so now his father's Naziris stops. So what happens now? According to Rebbe, what are we going to say? So, l'chayra at this point, so if the father's Naziris stops, he can't bring Karbanis anymore at the conclusion of his Naziris. His Naziris stopped right in the middle. So Elamai, what are you going to say? At that, and right in the middle, from 15 days forward, he accepts upon himself to be a Nazir from then going forward. The problem is though, so at the 30th day, his Naziris is not concluded yet. He's accepting upon himself his own Naziris, not his father's Naziris. So his own Naziris continues further. So at what point does he bring the Karbanis? Now the Gemara explains that this is only a question on Rebbe. Why is it only a question on Rebbe? According to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, this is understood. Why? Because the Omar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda said, he said that the father's power to make his son a Nazir comes until the age that he becomes 12 years old, until Einas Nadarim. So therefore, the Rishonim here explain, why is it better understood according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda? You could have the same question. Maybe that will also be right in the middle, b'mitzi, in the middle of 15 days in, and all of a sudden the father's Naziris gets interrupted. The answer is, this halacha, that the father's Naziris gets interrupted, is only according to Rebbe when the child becomes bar mitzvah, when he becomes a real gadol. Then the father's Naziris gets interrupted. According to Rabbi Yossi, that says that the father can make the child a Nazir only until the age of 12, but even if he becomes 12 in middle of the father's Naziris, his Naziris of the father continues. So then at the conclusion of the 30 days, he's going to bring the Karbanis for the Naziris of the father. So it's not a question on Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. But according to Rebbe, that says that the father's Naziris continues, or the father could make his son a Nazir until the age that he becomes a Gadol. So what are we going to say? Why is he saying to Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Chanina was saying to Rabbi Gamliel, makes no difference. I'll either be a Naziris for myself or I'll be a Nazir for the father. There's a big difference. If it would work out in such a way that you were your own Naziris from the beginning, or you were your father's Naziris until the end, fine. So it's the same thing. You bring the carbon at the end of 30 days. But if it's somewhere in the middle, your father's Naziris gets cut off. And now you would have to start your own Naziris. So it makes a big difference. It's not exactly the same Naziris. So Amri, they answered, according to Rebbe, you're going to have to say, L'Rebbe, leket takante ad Yosef delay v'Yosef davua. You're right, according to Rebbe, there's no takana for this. If you're not going to examine him to know exactly at what point he became a gadol, at what point he had shtei sidis, so you're going to have the Naziris for his father. And then he's going to have to count another 30 days Naziris for himself, because maybe right at the end, right before the end, his father's Naziris got cut off, and he has to now start counting his own Naziris. And his own Naziris continues for 30 days. So Taka, what he was saying to Rabbi Gamliel, I'll wait 60 days, I'll do 30 days for my father's Naziris, I'll do 30 days for my own Naziris, and I'll bring the Karbanis at the end of 60 days.
You really have to check every day.
Again?
You really have to check every day.
He was telling Rabbi Gamliel, you don't have to check at all. He was telling Rabbi Gamliel that
You have to check every day, because once you have Shtei Cyrus, your 30 days start.
Okay, true. Okay, so he was telling Rabbi Gamliel, you don't have to check me because I'll keep the Naziris all the way till the end, whatever time necessary, and I'll bring the Karbanis all the way at the end. That's a pshat according to Rebbe. A man could bring the karbanis. Again, the term megaleach that it says many times in the Gemara refers to bringing the karbanis along with cutting your hair. He could use naziris aviv, meaning the father that separated animals already for the karbanis. The son could use those karbanis of his father for his own naziris. But a woman that accepted upon herself naziris cannot use the father's karbanis for her naziris. Keitzad, how is this? When does this apply? So there are two different girsas here in the Gemara. There's the gir of this Mishnah. There's the girsa, the way it's written over here, which the Mefarish over here goes according to this girsa. But most Rishonim, the Tosfos and the Rosh, and most Rishonim learn the girsa differently, which fits the way it's brought later in the Gemara. So we're going to do the girsa according to the Tosfos and the Rosh. Okay? If you want, you can look into the Tosfos or the Rosh. They're pretty similar. Not exactly the same, mamish, not mamish word for word, but pretty similar. Okay, so Ketzad. So how does this play out? As follows. Mi shahaya hu ve'aviv nazirim. That's the girsa here. If the situation is that both he and his father were nazirim. In the father's lifetime, he already accepted upon himself to be a nazir. And then v'hifrish aviv moyes l'nazirus. The father separated money for his nazirus. Umeis. And the father passed away. So what happens now? Could the son use this money of the father for his nazirus? So Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi Aimer, that no, hare elu yiplu l'nedave. This money that the father separated for the Nazirus, the son cannot use it. This money will just become an adava for the Beis HaMikdash. We already learned before, if there's money which is unspecified from the Nazirus and it can't be used for the Nazirus, what happens with it? The money is just kept as an adava for the Beis HaMikdash to bring a carbon oil of it. So the point of this first case over here is, because the son was already a Nazir in the father's lifetime, see, he accepted upon himself his own Nazirus. He already had his obligation to bring his own karbanis while the father was dedicating his own karbanis. So therefore they're separate. He can't use his father's karbanis. That's the Reisha, and on this Rabbi Yossi says he can't use it. Now, then the Mishnah continues, but if the case over here is ve'ezehu shemegaleach al naziris aviv, I'm reading in the Tosfos here. Ve'ezehu shemegaleach al naziris aviv. When is this halacha l'Moshe Sinai applicable that he could take the naziris of his father, the karbanis of the naziris of his father, and use it for himself? That is harei shahaya aviv nazir. If the father was a nazir and he was not a nazir in his father's lifetime. And the father dedicated monies which were stumin, which were not specified. All the karbanis are going to be brought from this money, umeis. And now the father passed away. So now, and the son came and said, after the father passed away, I accept upon myself naziris with the condition that I'm going to use the monies that my father dedicated for my naziris. This is where the Allah Moshe Sinai applies, that he's allowed to use his father's karbanis. Because he wasn't a Nazir already before. He's accepting the Naziris now, and he's taking it upon himself with the condition that he's going to use his father's money. Here we say that he's able to take from his father's karbanis and use it for himself. Okay, like I said, this is the girsa, the pshat and the mishnah that most Rishonim learn. Zok the Gemara, my time. What's the reason here for this halacha? The question mainly is regarding the distinction. Why is there a difference between a man that could use his father's karbanis for his naziris and a woman that cannot use her father's money for the naziris? Rabbi Yechanan says, Rabbi Yechanan halachi ben Nazir. This is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai regarding Nazir, and this applies only to a man and not to a woman. Says the Gemara, for this distinction between the man and the woman, I don't need a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Pshita, it's obvious that a woman doesn't get to use her father's money. Why? Maila Meimra, what's the chiddush? The ben yodesh is aviv, that only a son yarshins the father and bas loy, and the daughter doesn't. That's always the halacha. A son yarshins the father and a daughter doesn't. So over here, regarding this leftover monies that the father left for nazirus, so it should be self-understood that if the halacha l'Moshe Sinai says that you can yarshin from your father and use those karbanis, that it's only for the son and not for the daughter. The daughter doesn't yarshin at all. And says the Gemara, no, we still need the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Leitziriche, the lesle elabas. This is needed in the case where this person only has a daughter. So she is the yodesh. She does inherit this money. So ma'al de teime, I would think to say, yodeshin gemiri la. The halacha l'Moshe Sinai says, anyone that inherits the father, whether it's the son or in this case the daughter, inherits this money to be able to use it for their carbon of nazirus. That's why I have the halacha l'Moshe Sinai to say that only the son yarshins the money for his carbon. It can use it for his carbon, but not a daughter. Huh? Doesn't need an explanation, but the Gemara is saying that for this detail you don't need the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. That was the Gemara's question. Since a daughter doesn't yarshin at all, even plain money stam doesn't yarshin, for sure she shouldn't yarshin the karbanis. So the Gemara says no, there is a situation where she does yarshin. The shaila was asked, Pligi Rabbanon alei de Rabbi Yossi. Do the Rabbanon argue on Rabbi Yossi? Pligi, or they do not argue on Rabbi Yossi. In this Mishnah, when it brought this halacha, and it made the distinction that there's a difference if the son was a Nazir already in the father's lifetime, or he only takes upon himself the Nazirus later, who's the one that's speaking in our Mishnah? Rabbi Yossi. It didn't bring another opinion. So the question is, why is it saying in our Mishnah Rabbi Yossi? Do the Rabbanon argue or not? Vim timtzalema pligi. If you're going to say they do argue, areisha, are they arguing on the reisha of the Mishnah? The reisha, the first case was, there Rabbi Yossi said that the son cannot bring the father's Nazirus because he was already a Nazir in the lifetime of the father. Is it on that case that Rabbanan would argue? Or Seifa, or perhaps they argue on the Seifa and they hold that a son could never take from the father's karbanis to bring for his Nazirus. Toshama, so we have a clear brisa about this. And here in the brisa we see like the girsa that we learned before in the Mishnah. So Kates Adamru, in what case was it said that Ish Megalech al Naziris Aviv, that a man could take the karbanis of his father, Mishaya Aviv Nazir, if the father was a Nazir, and Vihifrish Aviv Moisel Nazirusai, and the father already separated the money for the karbanis of his Naziris. Umeis, and now he passed away. Va'amar, and the son comes along and says, Hareini Nazir al Menas Shagalech al Mois Abba. I'll be a Nazir with the condition that I'm using my father's monies of the karbanis for my karbanis. It's this case that he could use his father's karbanis. If he and his father were both Nazirim, and the father separated the money for his Naziros, umeis, and then he passed away, so now the son that was already a Nazir from before can't use his father's money. So this money becomes an adava for the Beis HaMikdash. Divrei Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Amru. So all these Tanaim, so they are the Rabbanon that argued with Rabbi Yossi. So they said, Zehu shemagaleach al ma'asaviv. That even this case, even the second case of this brisa, which in our Mishnah was actually the Reisha, even though the son was already a Nazir in the father's lifetime, and seemingly he has his own independent Naziris already from then, it doesn't matter. Once the father passes away, he could take the father's money and use it for his own Naziris. So we see very clearly that the Rabbanon argued on Rabbi Yossi, and what do they argue on? They argued on the Reisha. Rab asked another shaila, Yeshle Shnei Banim Nazirim. What happens if the father passes away and now two of his sons accept Naziris upon themselves? So, according to Rabbi Yossi, or according to the Rabbanon, the two sons were Nazirim already from before, but the point is there are two Nazirim over here. So, Mahu, what's the halacha? Who gets to use the father's karbanis for his Naziris? Do I say Hilchase Gemirin law that this is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, meaning that this does not work the way regular Yerusha works? How does regular Yerusha works? You divide it, half and half. But this is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and therefore I say Kol the Kodim Golach Golach. Whoever comes first and takes it for his Naziris has it for his Naziris. There are actually two Pirushim in the Rishonim of this. Some say that what it means is whoever accepted upon himself the Naziris first gets to use his father's karbanis. And he said, I'm accepting upon myself Naziris, al Tanai, that I'm going to use my father's karbanis, at least according to Rabbi Yossi, that's the way it happened. So the one that accepted Naziris first, that's one shot. Or others actually learned that Kol Dekada means whoever grabs first. Whoever's going to grab that money first for his karbanis, he'll have it first. So the regular concept of Yerusha does not apply over here. Or perhaps Yerusha Gemiri law. The halacha l'Moshe Sinai is teaching me that the children yarshin this like a regular Yerusha, and therefore palgav, it's split between the two brothers. Each one gets half. So the point of here is this money that was already dedicated to be a karbanis, the regular Yerusha doesn't really apply. You can't yarshin kachim. Kachim is not your father's anymore. You inherit only chulin, that money that belongs to your father. But emes, there is no Yerusha that applies to this. Now the halacha l'Moshe Sinai was mechadish that the children could take it and use it for their karbanis. But the question though is, the halacha l'Moshe Sinai wasn't mechadish that they get it, but it has nothing to do with Yerusha. Or the halacha l'Moshe Sinai came to say that they can get this kachim in the similar fashion as you get Yerusha. And therefore it has to be split amongst these two brothers. A similar shaila, boy Rav asked the shaila, b'chayru pashat. If you have two brothers, one is a b'chayr, a firstborn that always gets a double portion, and a pashat, a plain brother that gets half of that. So you have these two brothers here that are available to take their father's money for the karbanis of the Naziris. Mai, what's the halacha here? So does the brother get a double portion here? Legabe this. Hilchase gemirin law. Do I say that we have here the halacha l'Moshe Sinai that they get from their father's karbanis, and v'hilkach so you don't have each one of them take their portion for these karbanis according to what they take otherwise from the Yerusha. True, regarding the rest of Yerusha, the Bukhari gets double. But not regarding this, over here, this halacha of Yerusha, that the Bukhari gets double, doesn't apply. Moshe Sinai says that maybe each one gets half, or one that comes and takes first, he gets first. But the halacha of Bukhari does not apply over here. Or no, do I say that this halacha of Yerusha applies here as well? Just like regarding every other part of Yerusha, he takes double. So the same way he also takes over here from this kachim, he also is going to get double from the karbanis of the naziris of his father. Yeah, the oldest, the B'chayr, will get double portion. Gemara continues, Ve'im tim tzelaymar. Now, usually in the Gemara, Ve'im tim tzelaymar means that the Gemara is about to ask yet another shaila. But according to most Rishonim, the Taisvis and the Rosh, Ve'im tim tzelaymar is not another shaila. The Gemara is just explaining the pshat of this shaila. Why is it different than the previous shaila? It seems like it's a very similar question to the previous shaila. Before we were basically asking by two sons, is this similar to a regular Yerusha and they get half and half? Or it's different than a regular Yerusha and one that gets first. And now we're asking the same kind of a shaila regarding B'chayr and Pashat. Do you get double like a regular Yerusha, or is it not like a regular Yerusha? But the Gemara now is explaining that it's not exactly the same as the previous shaila. Because even if you're going to say Yerushahi, that over here the Allah is like a Yerusha, ulufum the shakal megaleach, and according to what you take by a regular Yerusha, that's how you take here as well for this giluach, which means the karbanis. And you should take half and half, which was the previous ibaya. But over here, regarding this ibaya, it's different. This is how the Rosh over here learns the Gemara. He says, ubechulin. I mean, the words ubechulin is a little interesting. In the Rosh, it's mashma, his guidance over here, dibechulin. Now it's saying that over here it's going to be different. Ubechulin, hu de islay pishnai. But nevertheless, even if you're going to say that to some extent, the concept of Yerusha applies over here when there are two brothers, that the two brothers split the Yerusha, but not benegeh to this halacha of B'chayr. Only by chulim, by regular money that the father owns, do I say that the B'chayr gets double. When you're yashining this money that's really hektish, over here you don't get a double portion. And the Rosh over here brings the pasuk benegeh to a B'chayr. The lashon that the pasuk says is B'chol asher yimatzi loy. Whatever is found in the father's possession, that's what the son gets double of. So even if you're going to say that this kachim, there's Allah Sinai, that it's similar to a regular Yerusha, but nevertheless it's not Yumatzi Loi, it's not found in the father's possession, it doesn't belong to the father, it's kachim. So the halacha of B'chayr getting double will not apply. Or perhaps I say, Kivin de Kanile Legiluach. So Loishna, because it is acquired to him, because we see that there is a din of Yerusha benegeh to this kachim, so therefore the din of Yerusha applies all the way. It's as if it mamish belongs to the father, and the B'chayr will get double. So there's no difference. Okay, now the Gemara has another shaila here. Aviv Nazir Olam. What's if the nature of the Naziris of the father and the Naziris of the son is not the same? The father is a Nazir Olam. He took upon himself a Nazir to be a Nazir forever. And Vuhu Nazir Stam. And the son is just a Nazir Stam, which is 30 days. Or in the reverse, Aviv Nazir Stam, the father is going to be a Nazir for 30 days, Vuhu Nazir Olam, and the son is a Nazir forever. What's going to be the halacha now? So by Nazir Olam, if you remember, when his hair becomes heavy, he cuts his hair and brings karbanis. And then again, he has to, but it's not the same, it's a different kind of Naziris than a Nazir that's just for 30 days. So the question is, do I say, Ki Gemirin Hilchase, when does this halacha l'Moshe Missinei apply? Bistam Naziris. When the father and the son have the same kind of Naziris, a Naziris of 30 days, that's it. Or it makes no difference, and the halacha applies even if it's a different type of Naziris, and even if by Naziris Eilam, the halacha l'Moshe Missinai applies as well. Now, if you're going to come and say that hacha, in this case that we just asked the shaila regarding, so Idavid and Naziris Tara, both of them, the father's Naziris and the son's Naziris, they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. They're both Naziris where the father and the son have a Naziris in purity, and they're bringing karbanis in that kind of situation. So it's the same, similar karbanis. So maybe there the son could bring the father's karbanis. Now, nevertheless, Rav Ashi has another shaila. Aviv Nazir Tomei, the father dedicated karbanis because he became Tomei in his Naziris, and he has to bring those karbanis for Tumah, which are different karbanis. There's two birds for a Chatas and Oila and an Asham. And for who Nazir Tar? The son is a Nazir Tar. He has to bring different karbanis, 3 animals, Chatas, Oila, and Shlamim. He wants to use his father's karbanis, the money that the father dedicated for his karbanis. He'll probably have to add some more money, but he wants to use his father's karbanis. Or in the reverse, Aviv Nazir Tar, the father was a Nazir and he was Tar and he dedicated animals, money for the animals of his karbanis, and Vahu Nazir Tameh. He now wants to use this for his Naziris and he became Tameh. Now it's completely different kinds of karbanis. So what's the halacha here? Do I say that halacha l'Moshe Missinei allows you to take from your father or not? Teiku, this remains unresolved. Hadron Allah Chamisha Amma, this is the conclusion of the 4th Pedic of Masechta Nazir.